In the annals of history, a dark chapter unfolds: the Atlantic slave trade. It is a harrowing tale of countless Africans, torn from their ancestral homelands and thrust into a relentless voyage across treacherous seas. This journey, known as the Middle Passage, was a wretched and agonizing ordeal. Let us embark upon a somber exploration of the abhorrent conditions that plagued the slaving ships as they carried their cargo of enslaved souls toward an existence defined by brutality and suffering. Within the bowels of these vessels, a haunting aura pervaded the air, a symphony of despair and anguish. The very notion of comfort seemed a distant memory as the enslaved passengers were thrust into a world devoid of solace. The ships themselves became macabre abodes of filth and terror, offering no respite from the torment that awaited. As the ships set sail, their bellies groaned with the weight of human suffering. The enslaved Africans, reduced to mere chattel, huddled together in cramped quarters, their bodies pressed against one another in an indistinguishable mass. The stench of sweat, excrement, and despair permeated the air, stifling any hope of relief. Each breath became a bitter reminder of their subjugation. Days bled into nights, and nights into days, as the ship rocked and swayed upon the unforgiving waves. The voyage was an unyielding assault on the senses, a relentless onslaught of heat and humidity, punctuated by the wails of despair and the rattling of chains. Malnourished and weakened, the enslaved were subjected to the whims of an unforgiving ocean, their bodies tormented by the merciless grip of disease and starvation. But it was not only the physical torment that plagued these ill-fated souls. The psychological toll was equally devastating. Stripped of their dignity and torn from all they held dear, they grappled with a sense of loss and hopelessness that weighed heavily upon their spirits. Dreams of freedom were but distant mirages, forever out of reach. Amidst this maelstrom of suffering, the enslaved Africans clung to their cultural identity, finding solace in song, dance, and oral traditions. These acts of resistance were beacons of humanity, defiantly illuminating the darkness that surrounded them. In the vast tapestry of the Atlantic slave trade, the presence of slavery predates the arrival of European slave traders. However, it is important to note that the nature of slavery in traditional African societies differed significantly from the abhorrent system that unfolded later. Within African traditions, captives, be they debtors, prisoners of war, or political adversaries, were exchanged within the continent as a symbol of prosperity. Yet, it is crucial to emphasize that these slaves were not regarded as mere property. With the advent of Islamic merchants, a new chapter unfolded. African slaves found themselves transported across the Mediterranean, destined for a life of servitude. It was during this time that European merchants, upon their arrival in Africa, initially attempted to undertake raids themselves. However, these ventures proved rather fruitless and met with limited success. Faced with this setback, the Europeans altered their strategies. They turned to a new approach, one that involved purchasing enslaved individuals from African slave traders who operated primarily in regions like the Kingdom of the Congo. The allure of European wealth and currency proved too enticing for these African traders, and as a result, they began launching raids on neighboring territories to procure more individuals for sale to European buyers. This shifting dynamic marked a momentous turn of events. The flow of European capital into Africa had an undeniable impact, altering not only the course of trade, but also the social fabric of entire regions. The pursuit of profit had set in motion a chain reaction, leading to increased enslavement and the destruction of African communities. Gathered from various corners of Africa, the captives were brought together in bustling port cities, their destinies intertwined as they awaited the treacherous voyage across the vast Atlantic Ocean. Along their arduous journey from inland regions to the coast, the enslaved Africans found themselves herded in chains, forming sorrowful processions resembling trains. It was a haunting sight, for these individuals hailed from disparate backgrounds, speaking different languages, and having perhaps never before beheld the vastness of the ocean. A profound sense of disorientation and uncertainty pervaded the hearts of those who embarked upon this harrowing passage. Many had never set foot upon the decks of the ships that now loomed before them, their massive forms casting shadows of apprehension upon the souls of the enslaved. As the captives reached the port cities, they were marched relentlessly onto the vessels, herded below deck like chattel. One who would later become a prominent figure in the abolition movement, the former slave Olaudah Equiano, eloquently conveyed his own experiences aboard a slave ship. In his writings, he vividly recounted the initial confusion and shock that gripped him. Confronted with the presence of white men, he was haunted by uncertainty, uncertain if they intended to end his life or devour his flesh. Such torment and anguish were the grim companions of those who endured this brutal transatlantic journey. Their spirits weighed heavy with the shackles of oppression, and their bodies bore the scars of a deeply unjust system. As we delve into their stories, we confront the haunting legacy of the Middle Passage, a testament to the indomitable will to survive in the face of unimaginable suffering, and a call to acknowledge the resilience and strength that endured amidst the darkest depths of human history. The oppressive grip of the slave ship's crew extended beyond the mere confinement of the captives. Punishment awaited those who dared to defy, resist, or display any signs of independence. Floggings became a chillingly commonplace form of retribution, a violent reminder of the crew's dominance. Olaudah Equiano, for instance, experienced the cruel consequences of rebellion firsthand. When he refused to consume the meager rations provided, 2 men seized him, immobilizing his hands and binding his feet, while another subjected him to a merciless lashing. The searing pain inflicted upon his flesh served as a stark warning to others who might dare to challenge the authority of their captors' darkest depths of human history. Records from that time reveal further grim details of the punishments inflicted upon the enslaved. Slaves who resisted participating in the mandatory daily exercises, perceived as necessary for their own health, were met with similar brutality. Reluctance, sluggishness, or a lack of agility in carrying out these tasks invited the merciless bite of the whip, often administered by dreaded cat-o'-nine-tails. Branding irons and various torture devices were also utilized with alarming frequency, designed to break the spirits of the enslaved and enforce their subservience. Amidst the relentless torment and relentless attempts to quash their spirit, it is awe-inspiring to witness the resilience that flickered within the hearts of the captives. The flames of rebellion may have been met with fierce retaliation, but in those fleeting moments of defiance, they reclaimed a modicum of their humanity. These acts of resistance, however perilous, became beacons of hope, challenging the very foundations of a system built upon dehumanization. Trapped in the clutches of unfathomable despair, many of the enslaved found themselves teetering on the precipice of hopelessness. Their longing for liberation became so profound that they sought solace in the dark embrace of death. Yet, even in their darkest moments, the methods they employed to end their own lives exhibited a stark variety. According to accounts by John Newton, some captives would refuse sustenance, attempting to poison themselves in a desperate bid for release. Others, resolved to escape their torment, would cast themselves overboard into the vast expanse of the sea, determined to sever the chains that bound them. To counter these desperate acts, many ships were equipped with suicide nets, serving as a barrier between the captives and the watery abyss. Even if someone managed to breach these nets, pursuing boats would be dispatched, not out of altruism, but driven by the crew's economic interests. Each life lost meant a reduction in their profits, and so they would diligently retrieve any escapee who threatened their bottom line. Within the confining walls of these ships, a gender division emerged. The majority of captives were men, deemed more suitable for labor. Women, however, also endured the horrors of enslavement aboard the vessels. Separated from their male counterparts, women and girls were often spared the physical restraints of chains. In some instances, the captain himself would sleep in a hammock positioned above the girls, maintaining unsettling proximity to their vulnerable state. Yet this did not shield them from a different form of danger. Above all else, the profitability of the slave trade relied upon keeping the human cargo alive during the treacherous journey across the Atlantic. The crew, motivated by economic interests, employed every means at their disposal to coerce the captives into consuming the meager provisions provided: bread, beans, and salted meat. Those who resisted this forced sustenance were subjected to floggings, a dual purpose of punishment and a stark demonstration to other captives that resistance would not be tolerated. Let us delve into the tale of one such slave aboard the vessel Loyal George, which undertook a perilous voyage to Barbados in the year 1727. This particular individual, emaciated and reduced to mere skin and bones, steadfastly refused to partake in nourishment. His resistance was met with outrage from the ship's captain, Timothy Tucker, who feared that this act of defiance might incite rebellion among the other 200 captives under his charge. Determined to crush any flicker of insubordination, Tucker summoned his cabin boy, instructing him to fetch a formidable horsewhip. However, even under the threat of severe punishment and the captain's menacing declaration of intent to kill, the slave remained resolute. Uttering the words "Adoma" in his native tongue, he essentially conveyed an unyielding acceptance of his fate. The captain's attempts at breaking his will proved fruitless, highlighting the indomitable spirit that burned within the hearts of the oppressed. In their relentless pursuit of profit, the crew members discarded any semblance of compassion or respect for the basic dignity of the enslaved. The act of nourishment, once a fundamental aspect of human sustenance, was transformed into yet another mechanism of control and subjugation. It serves as a haunting testament to the depths of dehumanization endured by those caught in the cruel machinery of the transatlantic slave trade. Thanks for watching the video, and if you found it informative, please like and subscribe to Time Capsule for similar content. We look forward to sharing more knowledge with you in the future. Until then, take care.